All right, warm welcome again to those of you who are just joining us right now. We have quite a lot of participants today, so I think we will slowly start this webinar. My name is Maria Lindblad, and I work here at Lund University as an international marketing manager. And I am here today together with my colleague, Daniel Gunnarsson, who is in the back end at the moment, so you can't see him, but he will be with us throughout this webinar as well, and he might appear a little bit later on as well when we're doing the Q&A. This webinar is going to be in two parts, so we're going to start first with a presentation. The presentation will be a little bit shorter for those of you who have joined our previous webinars. We had made this one slightly shorter as we know that most of you have already started your application. So this is more a way for us to go through the remaining steps and for you to verify that you have done everything correctly in your application. And while I do the presentation, Daniel will be in the Q&A. So if any questions come up as we go along, please feel free to post your question in the Q&A. But I do also want to say that many of your questions will be answered throughout the presentation. So hold off a little bit to see if your question is already going to be answered there. But if you do come up with any questions as we go, or if there's something that I'm not mentioning, please feel free to write the questions in the Q&A, and we will have Daniel answer some questions throughout the presentation, and then I will be back for the second part as well, back here on camera, and we will answer your questions verbally. But we will not be taking questions verbally though, so please write your questions in the Q&A instead of raising your hand. The chat will be closed, so we do refer to the Q&A for your questions. We might be posting some links though in the Q&A, so you might get some messages there. It is also possible to upvote or to like questions that others have written, and this is a useful tool. So if you have the same question as somebody else, please like that question and it will come up in the Q&A higher up so that we can see that and answer your questions. So a lot of people have joined here while I was doing this brief introduction. So just once again, a warm welcome to this Lund University application webinar. We will be focusing on how to complete your application. And I think without further ado, I will start sharing my screen so that we can already get it going with the presentation. So again, I will be back here on camera after the presentation, and then we will take your questions. All right, open this up again. So hopefully you can all see the presentation now. So let's jump right in. This is the agenda for today's presentation. We will be going through a final application checklist. So this is for you to just follow along and verify that you have done all these steps. And it's actually not that many, it's 5 steps, but I will be explaining them in some detail so that you can check if you have completed the 5 steps. Then we'll talk briefly about assessment and selection. That's a very common question that we get, that students ask us, well, I have applied, I have submitted everything. What now? What happens? When will I get feedback? What's going on behind the scenes? So we will talk a little bit about that as well. We will talk about tuition fees, living costs, scholarships, and funding. We know that that is also a very common question. What options are there for funding and for scholarships? So we will be talking about this as well. I will mention the admission results, when they will be announced and when you can expect to hear from anything back from your application. And then some final tips where you can learn more and where you can submit your questions if we do not answer them today. So I hope that sounds good. So let's jump right in. So number 1 on our 5-step checklist, please make sure that you have checked all the entry requirements. We've written here before applying, so ideally you should have done that already. But in case you haven't, please do so now to make sure that you are only applying to programs that you are actually eligible for. It's not too late. If you need to change your program selection, you can do that up until the 17th of January. So worst case, if you have selected a program that you're not eligible for, you still have the option to correct that. But basically, there are three types of entry requirements. There are the general entry requirements, and these are the requirements that are for all students who want to study in Sweden at the level that you have selected. So that could be for bachelor's or for master's. There's a general requirement that is set for anyone who wants to apply to any program at that level in Sweden. And as you can see here, for bachelor's, that means you should have completed your upper secondary school, not be in the final semester, but have completed your upper secondary school, and also have English level 6. We'll get to this a little bit more in a moment. For master's, it means that you should have completed or be in the final year of your bachelor studies, and also meet the requirement of English 6. So these are the general requirements. But then there are also country-specific requirements. Because the education systems are different in different countries, it might be that you need to have a specific degree, a specific number of credits that is specific to your country only. So please make sure to check also the country page at universityadmissions.se to verify that you have the correct degree to be eligible. And then finally, the third one is the program-specific requirements, or just specific requirements. And these are the ones that are specific to the program that you are applying to. So you might be eligible to study a master's in Sweden in general, but you might not be eligible for that specific master's that you have selected. So this is something you need to verify with each of the programs that you select. And for example, if you're applying to a bachelor's, this could be that you need to have a certain level in a certain subject in order to be eligible. If you're applying to a master's, it could be that your bachelor degree needs to have a specific major, or you need to have completed certain courses as well. So make sure that you have checked all 3 levels of the entry requirements. That is the first step before you should even continue with your application. Then step number 2, no, actually, first I wanted to get into deeper with the English that I mentioned earlier. That's another one of the requirements that is a part of the general requirements, but I just wanted to mention something extra about that, because we do get so many questions about how can I prove that I meet the English requirements. So I really wanted to mention that specifically. And one common misunderstanding is that some students need to prove their English proficiency and others are exempt. That is not really the case. All applicants must prove that they have the required English language proficiency level. Then it's just a matter of how you can prove it. For most programs, English 6 is the requirement. Some programs might actually have a higher requirement, but this is the sort of minimum requirement. And English 6 is not the same as IELTS 6. I also want to clarify that, because that's also something that is misunderstood sometimes. Like I said, there are different ways in which you can prove that you meet this requirement of English 6. Some students are able to prove it through their upper secondary education. Some students are able to prove it through their previous university studies. And finally, some students prove it by taking an English language test, such as IELTS or TOEFL. So all of these are equally valid, but you need to verify that you have the proof it takes in order for your English proficiency level to be registered as English 6. So please go to universityadmissions.se. Under the section for entry requirements, there is a specific page, a full page, that only describes the English language requirements. And there you can see exactly in which ways you can prove that you meet the requirements. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of students who misunderstand this and just assume that they can submit a certificate from their university, or that just because they studied in English, it's fine. That is not the case. There are very specific ways in which you need to prove your English proficiency. So please check that. So that was just what I wanted to highlight about the English proficiency, which again is a part of the general entry requirements. But now I want to move on to step 2. I was ahead of myself a little bit there. So once you have made sure that you're eligible, you meet the requirements, the general requirements, including English, the specific requirements, and the country-specific requirements, then it's time to select the programs. And again, I know that most of you have done this already, but it's not too late. If you want to add some programs or change some programs, you can do that up until the 17th of January. And please only select programs that you are eligible for, so you don't waste your application on programs that you can't be considered for. If you are applying to masters, you can choose up to 4 programs in your application. If you are applying to bachelors, you can choose up to 8 programs in your application. And these programs can be all at Lund University or different universities, or you could have a couple of them at Lund and a couple of them somewhere else. It doesn't matter. You can mix and match as you want there within Sweden. So any program that you find on universityadmissions.se, you can add here that you are eligible for, of course. Once you've done that, the third step is to rank your program choices in order of preference. So as I said, you can choose up to 4 masters and up to 8 bachelors, but please do not just choose them at random and put them in any random order. You can do that at first, but then you have to rank them in order. And why is this important? Well, this is important because you can only be offered admission to 1 program. So you're not going to get 4 offers and then you can pick and choose which one you would like, or 8 offers and then you can choose. That is not how the system works. You will only get 1 offer. And this one, this will be considered in your order of preference. So if you're eligible and selected to your first choice, all the other programs that are below that, your second choice, your third choice, your fourth choice, they will automatically be deleted. Even if you are interested, even if the program is interested in you, it doesn't matter. You cannot be offered admission to those as well. So therefore, the program that you really, really want needs to be your first choice. And all the programs below that should just be considered a backup plan, basically. So in case you're not selected for your first choice, then you have the option to be selected for your second choice or your third choice, etc. So this is why it is very, very important to rank the programs in order. And also note that if you are a non-EU citizen and you plan on applying for our scholarship, the ranking is also very important for that, because in most cases, you will not be able to get a scholarship unless the program is ranked as your first choice. So keep that in mind as well. So that leads us to step number 4. So as you saw, there are only 5 steps and we're already at 4. So we're moving on pretty quickly here. Step 4 is, of course, to submit all the required documents. And the deadline to do this is the 1st of February. So the deadline I talked about before, the 17th of January, that was only to select and rank the programs, but you have until the 1st of February to submit the documents. So let's talk a little bit about the documents that are required. So we'll start with bachelor's applicants. If you are applying to a bachelor program, you will need to submit a record of your completed upper secondary education. And note that the stress here on completed. This means that you cannot apply in this round if you have not completed your high school or upper secondary studies by the 1st of February deadline. It's not possible for you to apply in this round. You will have to apply in a later application round. So we do need the transcripts from your high school or upper secondary school. We need your diploma or proof, a degree certificate, proof of graduation. We need your proof of English language proficiency. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there are different kinds of ways to prove that. In some cases, your transcripts will be proof enough, and then you don't need to submit anything else. But for many of you, you will need to submit a test result or other proof of English language proficiency. And then we need a copy of the page in your passport with your personal data so that we can connect you, who you are, with your application. And once again, a note here at the bottom, we do need your final upper secondary transcripts. I don't think I can say that enough because we get so many questions about this. If instead you are applying to a master's program, we need the transcripts from your bachelor's degree. We also need the degree certificate showing that you have graduated. And as you can see here at the bottom, where it says important note, if you have not yet graduated, you can apply, unlike when you're applying for bachelor studies where that is not possible. When you're applying for master's, it is possible. So if you are still in the final year of your bachelor's, you must submit an official document showing that you are enrolled in your final year, plus the transcripts that you have so far. But if you have graduated, you should, of course, submit your full transcripts and your degree certificate. And just as with bachelor studies, you need to submit proof of English language proficiency here as well. And also the passport copy so that we know who you are. So these are the general documents that all applicants need to submit when they're applying for bachelor's or master's respectively. But there are also, just as with the entry requirements, there are also country-specific rules when it comes to the documents. So depending on where you studied, and just want to be really clear here, it depends on where you studied, not where you're living, not what your nationality is, but where you studied. And depending on that, there might be specific rules for you to consider when it comes to what you need to submit exactly and how to submit them. So for example, there are countries from which students or applicants need to submit documents by post or with a certain stamp or with a certain translation attached to the transcripts. There are countries where the applicants are not allowed to submit their transcripts at all by themselves. It must be sent directly from the school. So there are different rules for different countries here. So it's extremely important that you check for your specific country so that you don't miss this, because if you submit your documents in the wrong way, they will not be considered. So please make sure to check that so that you submit them according to the rules for the country where you studied your previous degree. And again, just as with the entry requirements, where there were 3 different types, it's the same here with the documents. We talked about the general documents, the country-specific rules for documents, and there are also program-specific documents. And quite a lot of applicants miss this, and please do not, because they're very important. So in addition to these general documents that we talked about with the transcripts, the degree, the proof of English, there are also documents, not always, but in many cases, documents required by the specific program that you have selected. When it comes to bachelor's programs, there are generally no other documents, only the ones we talked about with the general documents. There are some exceptions for art and music where there are other steps to complete, but other than that, it's only the general documents. But for masters, on the other hand, there's quite often extra program-specific documents. And this could be anything like a CV, a statement of purpose, recommendation letters, a summary sheet. And this is specific, just as the name implies, to each program. So you can't set together like a general portfolio of documents, like here is my standard statement of purpose, and here's my CV, and I'll just submit all of that. No, you have to check it for each program that you have selected and check exactly what they require. Because some of them are very specific. They might have a template that they need you to use. They might have a specific word limit. They might have specific questions they want you to answer in the statement of purpose, for example. So please do not miss this. And you will find this on the program web pages on the Lund University website in the apply section, not in the requirements section, because this is not an entry requirement. This is about application and how you apply and what documents to submit. So check in the apply section. There's a specific section called program specific documents, and there you will find the instructions. So don't assume that it's the same for all programs, because it is not. So please make sure that you check there exactly what the program requires. All right, then we're at step 5. So we've gone through requirements. Step 1, selecting programs. Step 2, ranking programs. Step 3, submitting documents. Step 5, and now, step 4. And now step 5, we have pay the application fee or prove exemption. And this also needs to be done by the 1st of February, just as with the documents. Just a quick note here. I want to say that even though we put them in this specific order, step 4, step 5, they don't have to be done in this order. You can, of course, start by paying the application fee or proving your exemption and then submit all the documents. So it doesn't matter in which order you do this, but they both need to be done by the 1st of February, just to be clear about that. So if you are a non-EU citizen, you generally need to pay an application fee, and this is not paid to us at Lund University, but to university admissions in Sweden. So this is for your entire application. It's not dependent on the specific programs, or if you have 1 program or 4 programs or 8 programs. It is one fee for your entire application. And you need to pay this application fee in order for your application to be assessed at all. So it will not be processed unless you have done that, if you are a non-EU citizen who is required to pay. And again, the payment must have reached university admissions by the 1st of February at the very, very latest. But I do highly recommend that you do it as soon as possible, because then they can start processing your application. And if they find any mistakes or anything missing when it comes to the general or official documents, you have a chance to find out before the deadline. If you pay at the very last minute and they discover a mistake 2 weeks later, and then it's too late because the deadline has passed. So please consider paying as soon as possible if you are required to pay the application fee. If you are an EU citizen, you do not need to pay the application fee. You are exempt from that, but it is up to you to prove this. So you need to submit proof of your EU citizenship before the 1st of February as well, so that they know that they can go ahead with your application by that deadline. And this should be a copy of your passport or an official EU ID card for your country, so that you can prove your citizenship. All right, so if you have done all of this, if you have gone through all of these 5 steps and all the things I have said up until now, your application should hopefully be complete. And as I mentioned before, don't worry about the order you do things. You can submit documents, then select another program, and then pay the fee, or pay the fee first and then do this. As long as you stick to the deadlines that I have mentioned now, you can do things in any order. And another common question we get is like, okay, I've uploaded my documents, I paid the fee, what now? Do I need to submit it? Do I need to confirm somehow that I've completed my application? And the answer is no. Whatever is in your account, we can see it. University admissions can see it. You do not need to in any way tell us that your application is complete. We will just process whatever is there by the deadlines, and that's it. So there's no specific step there to submit the entire application. All right, so hopefully you have all done that, or you're on your way to do that. Well on your way to do that. Then what happens? Well, then your application will be assessed. And this happens a little differently depending on if you are applying to bachelor's or master's. So if you are applying to bachelor studies, your application will be assessed completely by the admissions officers at university admissions in Sweden, not to be confused with the local admissions office at Lund. So university admissions in Sweden is an authority in itself. It is a separate organization from all the universities. And they will do the full assessment when you are applying to bachelor studies. So it will not be processed by the universities as such. It's quite an automatic process in that regard. So they will check that you meet all the requirements, both sort of the general requirements, the program specific requirements. If there are any country specific requirements to consider, they will check all of that when it comes to bachelor's. And then when it comes to master's, on the other hand, there is a 2-step process. So university admissions in Sweden will first check that your documents are correct, that your degree is valid, that you have proof of English, and that you meet the general requirements to study a master's in Sweden. Once they have done that and they have registered that, then the applications will move on to the universities. So after the deadlines, when the general processing has been done at university admissions, the programs that you have applied to, the staff at these programs will start making their assessment. And they will then be checking that you meet the specific entry requirements of that program, that you have submitted the program specific documents, and they will then make their selection among all the eligible applicants. So this will be assessed by the programs. So that is why it's so important to get all the official documents in correctly and on time, because if you do not pass that first check with proof of English and your degree documents all in order, you will never even get to the university for assessment. So please make sure that you submit all those general documents and that the processing can start of those as soon as possible. Now, a little bit later on in the process, about this time, and certainly in February, we get this question on a daily basis. How do I know that everything is okay? Unfortunately, there is no confirmation. There's nobody who can say, yes, your application is totally fine, everything is correct, everything is complete, it's all good, because the processing happens on an ongoing basis. And as I just explained, for master studies, it's also a two-step process. So even if university admissions can say, yes, you've submitted your general documents correctly, that doesn't mean that everything is okay from the program standpoint. So, and the programs, on the other hand, can verify the general documents. So there is no one who can say for sure that everything is correct. That's why it's so important that you follow all the information on the websites and that we're talking about now in this presentation, and that you will find on our website as well, that you make sure you can submit everything on time. I mean, we're happy to go in and check if you have any specific questions. Did my transcripts arrive? Or can you see my statement of purpose that I uploaded? Or anything like that, but we will not be able to say, yes, 100% certainty, your application is fine. It's just not possible for us to do that. I talked about earlier that it's good if you submit the official documents and also pay the application fee or approve your exemption as soon as possible, so that you can get feedback if anything is wrong. So when it comes to the official documents, like your degree documents, your transcripts, your diploma, or your proof of English, university admissions in Sweden will send you a message through your account if they find that something is wrong or missing. Again, they cannot speak for the program-specific documents, but they can speak for the general documents. So if, for example, you've missed a translation of a transcript, or your transcript has been submitted incorrectly, they will tell you this through your account. And then you might still have time to correct that, as long as that happens before the 1st of February deadline. So please submit it now so that you have a chance to correct any mistakes on time. And please make sure to check your account every now and then, and any emails coming as well, as it might be very important for your application. Right. So let's move on a little bit to this actual selection process. I know that many are curious about that as well. So what happens? We talked about the assessment already, but how do we actually make an assessment? So this is, again, a little bit different between the bachelor's and the master's. And first of all, you need to, of course, be fully eligible and have submitted the documents in order to be considered for selection. That's the first step, just making the complete application. But if you have done that and you're eligible, you will be in a pool of eligible applicants, and then the selection happens. So for bachelor's programs, it is based entirely on your upper secondary grades. So basically, the documents coming in from all over the world are recalculated according to a specific table, if you will, so that everybody can get a number, a merit score or merit rating. And based on this, the students are then rated from the one with the highest number to the one with the lowest number. And then you will be selected depending on how many places there are in the program. And those who are eligible but not selected will then be waitlisted or put on the reserve list. So it's quite an automatic process, as I talked about before. When it comes to masters, however, each master program has their own selection criteria. So it's not necessarily only grades or your GPA. It could be your statement of purpose. It could be recommendation letters. It can be other things as well that they consider. And that is why it's so important that you submit the correct program-specific documents, because that can actually weigh quite heavily in the selection as well. And if you're curious to see what the selection criteria is for the particular program that you have selected, you can find that on the program webpage on the Lund University website. There is a section called Requirements and Selection, and there you have selection criteria. And there you can see exactly what the program staff will look at when they make their selection. Right. So I think we're going to change topics slightly here. So now we have gone through the entire checklist of the application. We've talked about the assessment. We've talked about how that happens, the processing happens. Now I want to touch a little bit on the fees and funding, because I know that we get a lot of questions about that, especially a little bit later in the process. So I want to mention a few things about that as well. So first of all, let's talk about the tuition fees. So if you are non-EU or non-EEA, you are required to pay tuition fees in general for your studies at Lund University. And the tuition fees vary between the programs. Some students ask us, what is the fee at Lund University? But it's not one fee for the university. It varies between the specific programs. So in order to check how much the fee is for your specific program, please go to the program webpage again on the Lund University website, and there is a tab or a section for tuition fees, and there you will see the exact amount. And it's listed there in the Swedish currency, so you'll have to do a conversion to see what it is in your currency. The tuition fee is paid in installments, so you pay one semester in advance. The first one will be due on the 20th of May this year to start your studies in August or September. And then you will pay each semester. So if you're doing a 2-year master's, for example, you will be paying 4 times in total. If you're doing a bachelor's, which are 3 years in Sweden, you would be paying 6 times in total. In addition to tuition fees, you need to, of course, consider the living costs, and this is for everyone. So even if you're EU, you are not paying tuition fees, but you will still need to consider the living costs that you need in order to survive in Sweden throughout your studies. We recommend that you have approximately 900 euros per month to cover all your living expenses, and this is similar to what also Swedish students receive in grants and loans from the government here. So that's why we know that this is a sort of good average student budget. Exactly how you spend this money varies, of course, but you can see some numbers here of what you can estimate that different things are going to cost. So accommodation may vary from 300 euros to 500 euros per month, for example. Food around 250 euros per month. Course literature will also vary a lot. You could buy used books or borrow from the library or share with someone. So it's a little bit up to you, but you can see just a rough estimate here of this budget. And also you need to be aware, if you are non-EU, you are going to, if you get offered admission, you are going to need to apply for a residence permit to come and study in Sweden. And when you do that, you also need to prove that you have the money for your living costs before coming to Sweden. So this is important to consider as well. It's not just an amount that we recommend, but you actually need to have this in order to get your residence permit to live in Sweden. So if you need some help with some of these costs, there are a few options. And this is for non-EU citizens, as you are the ones who are required to pay tuition fees. So the first scholarship I want to mention, that is the main scholarship that we offer here at Lund University, which is the Lund University Global Scholarship, or also called LUX for short. And all non-EU citizens who have applied to a program at Lund University are eligible to apply for this. This scholarship can cover from around 25% up to around 90% of the tuition. It does not cover any living costs, however, so it's important to still consider those. And the scholarship is merit-based and very selective. And you can apply for it in February. So after all the deadlines have passed to finish your application for studies, that's when we open the application for the scholarship. There is also a scholarship offered at the national level by the Swedish Institute, which is called the Swedish Institute Scholarship for Global Professionals is the main one that they offer. And this is only for citizens of selected countries. So if you're interested in that scholarship, please head over to the Swedish Institute website and check if you're from an eligible country. I believe it's 42 countries. So check that you are a citizen of one of these countries in order to apply for that. They also do have specific requirements, such as you need to have some work experience, some leadership experience, and it's a very selective scholarship. But if you are one of the few lucky ones who receives this scholarship, it does cover full tuition and living expenses as well. And just as with the Lund University Global Scholarship, you can apply for this scholarship in February. So again, the first step is always to complete the application for studies in order to be eligible for any scholarship. In addition, we do have a few programs who have their own scholarship as well. And if so, it will be mentioned on the program webpage on the Lund University website. So you can check there if your program has any other scholarship as well. Now, I did mention that both the Swedish Institute Scholarship and the Lund University Scholarship are very selective. And therefore, please do not rely only on these. If you are dependent on a scholarship in order to help you to manage the cost of your studies, please make sure to have a backup plan and to apply for other funding options and scholarships as early as possible. So even though you don't know yet if you're going to be selected, this is a time to start researching other options so that later on, depending on when the application period is for these scholarships, you are prepared and you can go ahead with those documents and make an application as well. There are plenty of banks who can offer student loans. There are local organizations and foundations in different countries that offer specific scholarships for students who want to study abroad. There are also global organizations and foundations who may not be tied to your specific country, but they offer scholarships for students from different countries to go study abroad. So make sure that you look into this and that you have a backup and that you can apply for many options. Sadly, we do often see that students apply only for the Lund University Global Scholarship or only for the Swedish Institute Scholarship. And then when the admission results come out later in spring, they get very excited for about a day or two when they realize I've received admission, I have an offer, I'm going to come to Lund. And then a couple of days later, they realize I didn't get a scholarship. And then they have no other plans, no backup plan. And then maybe in the end, they cannot show up at all. So don't put yourself in that position. Make sure that you have other options as well if you are dependent on external funding. Now, admission results, the happy day we're all waiting for, or happy days, I should say, because there are two different days. As you know, in Sweden, there's a national system. That's why you're all applying through university admissions. So there is also a national admission day when everybody receives their admission results. So it's not dependent on when in the application round you applied. Everybody gets their result on the same day. And this day is the 7th of April for master's applicants and the 13th of April for bachelor's applicants. So these are the days when you will find the results in your university admissions account. And once the results are out, you're obviously going to receive a lot more information from us. If you are accepted to studies with us, we will be sending you emails and videos and hosting more webinars explaining the other steps of the process, such as paying your tuition fee, applying for housing, applying for a residence permit, and so on. So don't worry if you don't know all the everything you need to know about that right now. That is a little bit later in the process. But these are the dates you might want to make a note of so that you know when to expect the results. In the meantime, there are things you can do if you have finished your application and you just want to learn a little bit more about what it's like to study at Lund University and just curious about life in Sweden or other things. Just be aware that there's a lot more information out there. We will be, as I mentioned already, having more webinars between admission, both before admission results come out, but also after admission results come out and before arrival. There is a virtual tour on our website. I hope you've all checked that out. There's quite a lot of information and videos in there as well. So you can check out what the campus looks like, what the different departments look like, and so on. You can also chat with current students who are studying at Lund University now. And we have a wide range of students from different countries studying different programs. We have bachelor students, we have master students. So please do chat with them and understand a little bit more what it's like. And we also post blog posts from them so that you can read in a little longer format the things that they think are special about Sweden or something that they want you to be aware of. You can also follow our current students on Instagram. We have an Instagram account that is run completely by students. It's not run by us as staff members, but the students take over the account and run the account so they can post highlights from their studies at Lund as well. And if you're curious about housing options, we do have videos on YouTube, excuse me, on our YouTube channel that show most of our housing areas. And you can get a feeling of what it's like to live in the different options. And we also have subject area videos from the different subject areas that we offer programs within. So you can learn more about that. And as I mentioned already, you can chat with our student ambassadors, and here is the link if you want to check that out. There are more than 80 current students there waiting to chat with you. And Instagram, you have the account here. It's simply at Lund University. So you can go there if you want to see some highlights from campus. And if you have any other questions that we will not be able to get to today, then you can always reach us here. If you go to lunduniversity.lu.se/degree studies, and there will be a form where you can post your question, and it will come to myself and my colleagues here at the International Marketing and Recruitment team. And we will try to help you best we can. So with that, I want to finish the presentation part of this webinar and say good luck with your applications. And I hope that this was useful and helpful as you complete your application. And now I will stop sharing my screen here so that we can focus completely on the questions that you have. I've seen here throughout the presentation that a lot of questions have come in the Q&A, and I know that my colleague Daniel is there and has answered a lot of questions already, but we will continue to do so throughout the remaining time of this webinar. So let's jump into the Q&A. So let's see here. Anissa has a popular question, and the question is, what time will the university admissions be announcing the results on the 7th, and will they email you directly? So Anissa, it actually comes out a little bit in batches throughout that day. Usually they start in the morning already, Swedish time. And there's also a big batch around lunchtime, Swedish time. So I can't say exactly what time you will see the result. It also depends on your time zone a little bit, when you wake up or when you go to bed. But usually around morning or lunch, Swedish time, you can expect to see it. You will get an email saying that the result is in your account. You won't see what the result is in the email, but you will be notified that the result is in your account, and then you can log in and check the result in your account. That email might go to your spam folder though, so don't just sit around and wait for the email. You can also just log into your account and check. You will be able to see that. So let's see. And you had another question as well. Do the students at Lund University attend class every day nowadays, or is there a hybrid study? Well, Anissa, most of the studies did return to on-campus studies in November last year. Some of the bigger lectures were still online, were still delivered in a digital format, but other smaller seminars and workshops or group work were on campus. However, as we all know, things have gotten a little bit worse around the world than the last couple of months, and there are now new restrictions coming all the time, almost every day or every week. So it's a bit too early for us to say at this point exactly how the studies will be conducted in autumn, because we simply don't know yet. most likely at least the larger lectures, or big lectures with 50, 60, 100 students will probably be online, if I would take a guess, although it is just a qualified guess at this point. But hopefully we will still have other activities and other in-class events happening on campus. That is certainly what we're hoping. And I do want to clarify that throughout the pandemic, we have always said to international students that they should plan to arrive, and that they should arrive in Lund at the start of the semester. So even back when the studies were completely online, we still requested that international students come to Lund. So you should definitely plan to come either way, but we will have to let you know later on exactly how the studies will be conducted. And this will be planned by each faculty as well, depending on their class sizes and their venues and the location. So it depends a little bit on how they can set up their studies to make sure that they can do it in a safe way. And if they can't, then they will have to do it digitally. So that's as well as I can answer this at this point. So now we have another question here about the English language requirement. I studied English throughout school, bachelor's and master's. However, the language of instruction is not stated on my official upper secondary certificate or my bachelor's. Okay. So this is from Gaurav. This is quite specific when it comes to your certificate here, so I can't really answer just based on this question. You will have to check again on university admissions on that page exactly how you can prove it. If it is, as you said, it's not stated, but it says on the back of the transcript that it will be in English, that might be enough. It's not always that it needs to be stated. It could also be in the International Handbook of Universities that the school only teaches in English. And if that's the case, then we can use that as well. But basically, the answer is submit what you can as soon as possible, pay the application fee, let university admissions process it. If they do not accept your proof of English, they will let you know. And then you hopefully still have time to submit some other proof or take a test if you need to. But try to do this as quickly as possible. And also check both the country-specific page for where you studied and also, again, the English language requirement page, because you can make out quite a lot from that page when it comes to exactly the proof that you need. So I hope that still helped, although I can't give a firm yes or no for your specific case there. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to, okay, these questions we have done. It has come to my attention that files you have to submit have to be in a specific PDF format, not a normal PDF. It becomes quite impossible to do this from an Apple computer. Does it mean I have to apply from a Windows computer? This question was from Caroline. No, it should be able to work with different PDF formats. Try to follow the instructions from university admissions as well as you can. And there are several free programs that you can use to convert into PDF files. As all the applications I have seen so far in this round, I have been able to read the PDFs. So if you want us to check, what you can do is you can upload a document and then just contact us and ask us to check if we can see it. And if we can see it, it's fine. It is in the actual conversion in the system that it sometimes doesn't work and the page comes out blank or either just white or black and we can't read it. But as long as we can read it, it's fine. And it's not a requirement that everybody has a Windows computer. So you should certainly be able to make it work. And worst case, some documents, depending on what it is, could also, if it's not an official document, could also be, you could also take a photo and convert to a PDF. This is not recommended in general, but if it is, for example, a CV or a document that is not an official, that doesn't have official requirements, set to it, you might be able to do that. But the best is to follow the instructions in the uploading instructions as much as you possibly can that university admissions have set. All right, here is a question. All right, I'm applying to the master's program in psychology. I have a question regarding the application summary and statement of purpose document that I have to submit. Can I use my former research reports from my bachelor's degree in the draft research proposal? And exactly what should the draft research proposal contain? This question was from Louise. Louise, it's a little bit, and whenever something is not clearly specified, like when they don't write exactly what it should be, that means there is some room for you to submit this the way that you see fit. If you already have a research report and this is something that you would like to continue to do research on, then I would say yes, you could use part of that or maybe rewrite that for this section. The point is that they want to see what kind of ideas you have, what kind of research you're interested in. So there's no specific formal requirement there when it comes to exactly what it should contain. It's mainly just to see what your ideas are and if you have a research a question in mind. So it sounds to me that you should be able to use a research report that you already have and work around that. Okay, do you need to translate your grades from upper secondary school yourself or submitting your diploma enough? So this question from Marian, so it is actually stated on the page on university admissions when it comes on, if you check under bachelor's and submitting your documents, it's stated which languages they can accept the documents in. It's not only in Swedish or English, there's actually a bunch of languages there. So if your transcripts from high school are in one of those languages, you can submit them as they are. If they are not, then you will need to provide Swedish or English translation. You do not need to convert your grades in any way. That is done automatically by university admission. So you do not have to try to calculate that into Swedish grades in any way, but you might need to translate the documents depending on the language requirements that you can see there. All right, we have a question. I have received mark sheets from my bachelor degree, but I read that we need to submit transcripts for the documentation. Is there any difference between mark sheets and transcripts? Well, this is quite a country-specific thing. I know that in some countries you receive these in two different batches. You receive mark sheets from the college where you studied, but the college might belong to a university, and then you get the official transcripts from the university. So this is a case where it's very important that you check the country-specific rules for where the country where you studies. I suspect that you may have studied in India. I recognize this issue from when I was working a lot with Indian applicants. And in that case, note that the transcripts must be from the university and not from the college. So just check the country-specific rules there to verify what you can submit. All right. Again, for all of you listening here, there is a lot of questions. And even though both Daniel and I are working on them, we might not get through all of them. So if you see a question that you also have, please feel free to click like so that the question will get upvoted and come higher up in our list here, and we can help as many as possible. So if you see a question that you also have, please don't write a new question, but instead like the question that you see. Here's a question from Gracia. For the master's programs, we have to write a statement of purpose, but in case we select 4 different master's programs, should we write one statement of purpose for each program? Gracia, that is a very good question, and I'm so glad that you asked this, because this is something we often need to clarify. And as I mentioned in the presentation, the program-specific documents are program-specific, and they're not the same for all. So first of all, are you sure that all 4 programs require a statement of purpose? That's the first thing to check, because they might have different requirements, and they might not have any program-specific documents. So it's not that you can just assume that everybody wants a statement of purpose and then just write that in 4 versions. You have to check exactly what the program requires. And if you have done that and you have concluded that, yes, in fact, all of these 4 programs I have selected do require a statement of purpose, then the answer is yes, then you do need to write it for each program, because it is, again, program specific. It's not a generic document that you can just write a standard one and upload for everyone. You do have to check exactly what the program requires and submit exactly that for each program. So great that you asked that, because I know that a lot of people have that question or make a mistake here. All right, let me see here. The results, after the results come out on the 7th of April for masters, and if everyone is allotted only 1 course, if someone declines to join, will their seat open up? So this is a question from Anthony. Yes, so what happens is that, let's say that you are eligible to a specific program that is your first choice, but you're not selected. Then you're automatically waitlisted or placed on reserve list, as it's called. And you might have a program below that as your second choice, and you're also eligible for that, and you are actually selected for that. Then you will be admitted to your second choice, but you will be reserved on your first choice. And just as you pointed out here, if somebody then declines their place in the same program that was your first choice, it is possible that a place opens up and that you could later on be admitted to your first choice instead. So yes, that can absolutely happen as well. But if the choice is lower than one that you have been admitted to, then you will not get that option. But if it is a higher ranked choice that you get an offer for later, that can happen if somebody else declines. Yes, I hope that answered your question. Here is a question. I have trouble converting my grades from a German grading system into an international American grading system. Is a conversion even necessary, or can you recommend a conversion table? So this question is from Katarina. No, you are not responsible for converting your grades at all. You just apply with the grades that you have from your country, and this will be done by other people when they assess your application. However, there are some programs who ask in the program-specific documents if you can please state your GPA. And they might want this in a specific format. And if so, then usually it comes with an instruction on how to do that, or you just do that the best you can through a regular conversion that you can find online to try to explain what grade you had in your system. But in general, this is not something that you need to do. It is something that we do, or university admissions will do as a part of the processing. Here's a question from Dell. Can I work during my master's studies? The answer is yes, you are allowed to work while you are studying. You are allowed to work part-time. However, if this question is based on the fact that I was talking about the living costs and so on before, just be aware that your main activity is studies, and you are studying full-time, so you cannot count on working enough to cover all your living expenses in Sweden. That is not realistic. Also be aware that Lund is quite a small university town. It has over 40,000 students, most of which speak English and Swedish, and most of which would be happy to have a part-time job. So the competition is quite tough to find work. So it's not something you should be dependent on or count on in order to survive or manage your all your living costs, but it is an added bonus, of course, if you happen to find a part-time job, and if you already have some experience, it might be easier as well to contact companies that are in your field. And if you do manage to find a part-time job, you are definitely allowed to work during your studies as well, as long as you can manage your studies, of course. Question from Khalid. Hey, Maria and Daniel, if I am selected while doing the residence permit, does it cover only me, or can I apply for an additional dependent as well? Well, first of all, Khalid, you cannot apply for the residence permit until after. So just to clarify that, you need to be admitted, you need to pay the first tuition fee installment, and then you can apply for the residence permit. If you want to come with a family member, like a spouse or children, you can apply for them as well in the same application. Of course, you need to make sure that you also can cover the living costs for those family members. So there will be additional requirements in terms of funding that you must have, but you are very welcome to apply for your family members as well. And all this information you can find on the Swedish Migration Agency website, because they are the ones who handle that process completely. Okay, Susanna, how much of the teaching in the bachelor's in biomedicine happens online? And how many lab classes per semester or year do we have? Are all those mandatory to attend? Susanna, again, as I mentioned before, I can't really say at this point how much will be online or how much will be in class in autumn, because things are changing very quickly right now. So I do not dare to answer that. But one thing to be aware of in general is that all the studies are full-time, meaning you should plan on studying 40 hours per week. However, that doesn't mean that you are always in class, of course. There's also a lot of home assignments and reading and things you need to do on your own or together with others in your class. If you want to see the specific schedule or syllabus for the courses in that particular program, you would have to go on the website and look. You can see both the syllabus, and you can also probably on the department website also find a schedule from the earlier year, from this year, for example. And although it might not be exactly the same, you can get an idea of how much time there will be in class. And if you can't find any of it, you're always welcome to ask also the program managers how many lab sessions there are, for example, or how many hours per class. And when it comes to mandatory courses, or mandatory lectures, that varies a lot too from course to course. So it's not like a set structure that's the same for all programs, or even within the same program. You actually study module-based, one course at a time, sometimes 2 courses at a time, but usually just 1 course at a time. And the way the courses are structured vary from course to course. So you might have one course of 7.5 credits where there's a lot of lectures and a lot of group work and a lot of lab, and then you might have another course where there are no mandatory elements at all, for example. So it will also vary throughout the semester. It's not the same for the entire program. So just be aware of that as well. Here we have a question. May I know the status showing qualified below beside my selected program? Does it mean does it mean that I already met the required documents and qualifications? It's a bit too soon to say. This is from Susu. I don't want to say for sure yes on that, but it does at least mean that university admissions has processed a part of your application. But be aware, especially when it comes to masters. I don't know if this was masters or bachelors. I'm assuming bachelors, but especially for masters, as I talked about before, the processing happens in several steps. You could be qualified and meet the general requirements, but it doesn't mean you meet the specific requirements or that you'll be selected, for example. So at this point, even if you see that, it's a very good sign. That probably means that you meet the general requirements, but it is a bit too soon to draw any conclusions. And I would encourage everyone to simply sit tight and wait until the admission results are out, because nothing is set in stone until that day when you actually get the results. So yeah. All right, it's a question from Laura. In case upper secondary education is sufficient as proof of English proficiency for my application and I'm applying for a master's program, do I need to upload both the original upper secondary education diploma and the official English-Swedish translation as proof of English proficiency? Laura, yes. Well, it depends on your situation, of course, and the country rules and so on. But if you are using your upper secondary documents for anything, I mean, those are generally not required when you apply to a master's, but if you are using them for anything specific, in this case, proving your English, then those should be submitted according to the rules. So those should be correctly submitted depending on the country specific rules. But please note though that we do accept bachelor's documents in more languages than master's documents. So it could be that you don't need a translation for the the upper secondary school documents, even if you needed it for the master or the bachelor's documents. So just verify that on university admissions as well. All right, Beck, I have completed all 5 steps and uploaded my naturalization certificate proving that I'm a German citizen. My application portal still says your application is incomplete and cannot be processed. In order to begin, we must receive your application fee. Beck, I've had several situations like yours today, and I believe I have a quite easy answer to that. Probably they simply haven't gotten to your application yet and registered your nationality, and therefore it's kind of blocked. That you will have this message that you need to pay the application fee until they have seen and registered that you are exempt. So most likely there's just a backlog at university admissions because we've all been on holiday for the Christmas break now. So I think they've just not registered it yet. It can also be that when you uploaded your passport copy, you did it in the general folder and not the folder for passport ID, which can make it a little bit harder for them to find that document if it's in a big batch of other documents. So then it can take a little bit longer for them to find that and register that. But if you know that you have uploaded your passport, your EU passport correctly, don't worry too much about that. That message will disappear once they have registered that. Okay, Margin is asking, I am in doubt if the scan of my passport is readable. Do I get a notification if it is not? No, not really. You will most likely just keep getting that message that you haven't paid the application fee. So if that message is still there or doesn't go away soon, and you know that you have proven your EU citizenship, I would either contact university admissions or upload the passport again, or contact one of us and we can go in and check if your passport is readable, and so that you are certain that you have proven your exemption by the 1st of February, because that is essential. Otherwise, your application will not be processed. Luciana is asking, is it a bad idea to apply to only one program? What is your recommendation? Not at all. It doesn't really matter if you apply to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. It's completely up to you. If you are interested in 4 different programs, go ahead. If you're only interested in 1, then stick to 1. It doesn't really matter. If you have any doubt about your eligibility or how competitive your application is, and you are really uncertain if you're going to be able to get admission or not, then it might be a good idea to have a backup plan. But it's absolutely not a bad idea, or we can't really recommend one or the other. There are plenty of people who would just apply to 1 program or 2, and there are others who prefer to fill out all their options. So completely up to you. We can't really give any recommendation there, to be honest. Okay, Sophia, if the course that we're applying to has a full-time, part-time option, do we have to apply specifically for the part-time option, or do I get to choose later when I'm accepted? They set this up, Sophia, a little bit differently, but in most cases, and the cases that I'm aware of where the programs have this option, it is already a part of the selection option. So you will have to apply specifically to either the full-time or the part-time. Those are two different application choices. So, but it depends on the program. If there is not such an option, then you might get to choose that later. But usually it's already a part of the application process that you will have to click something or select that option specifically as a separate program. All right. Let me see here. The questions are jumping around a little bit. So here we have Anjita. I read on the university admissions website, it's written that students holding only a Bachelor of Applied Science will not satisfy the entry requirements for a master's. Okay, this is quite specific to Indonesia. Anjita, I'm afraid I cannot elaborate more on that. These are, again, country-specific rules. So you need to follow exactly what is written here. If you are unsure about the accreditation of your university, I suggest that you check with them. If you can't get that information from them, you can ask university admissions in Sweden, because this is a part of the national rules and the national eligibility for your country specifically. So I am not in a position to elaborate any more on that. I do have a colleague who in the team here who works specifically with applicants from Indonesia as well. So what you can do is use the form that I linked to at the end of the presentation, where you can send us a question, and then the question will be forwarded to him, and perhaps he can give you some more information as well. But I am not able to elaborate any more on this. I'm sorry. Melia is asking, I have a merit rating of 21.5 or 2150 out of 2250. What are the chances of getting in? Well, for those others of you who are listening and who are confused by this, don't worry. The merit rating should not be shown to any applicants, because this is more of an internal number. I do know that for bachelors, it is often visible for the applicants. And of course, they will then try to interpret this. But please don't, because it is more or less impossible anyway to kind of draw any conclusions based on that. The merit rating changes every year, what is required, or what the different applicants have. You are always competing with the other applicants in that round. So regardless of what your score is, we cannot really elaborate on your chances of admission, because it depends on so many other factors, how many seats there are, what kind of merits the other applicants have, if there are different selection groups in the second application round, and so on. So there is no way for us to help you here to get any idea of your chances. We can only recommend that you simply hold on tight and wait until April, when you will find the results in your account. All right. Sophia is asking, my preferred course will be long distance. Will I still be able to participate in student life? I'm not really sure what you mean there, Sophia. If you are studying a program that is completely distance studies, then that means that you are in your home country, or in Sweden, if you already live in Sweden, of course. And there are, at least during these times when a lot of things are happening online, a lot of activities that you can still participate in, even if you are not excuse me, physically on campus. So yes, anything that is possible for you to participate in digitally, you can of course do that. And if you are an enrolled student at Lund University, then you can of course participate in activities on campus as well, even if your course is distance learning. So if you happen to be in Lund, but you're still doing a distance course, you're very welcome to attend any activities as well. Okay, Ebba is asking, as a Swedish student, should I also upload pictures of my passport and my grades from my upper secondary education, or is this connected to antagning.se or universityadmissions.se? Ebba, it depends a little bit on how you applied. It's not really dependent on your nationality as much as where you studied, or whether or not you have a Swedish personal number. If you applied with a Swedish personal number, as we call it, or social security number, for those of you who don't know what a personal number is, then it is usually connected directly to your grades from upper secondary school would be connected in the system automatically. But this depends on how you applied, if you applied with that number, or if you just created an account with an email. For example, it also depends on where you studied, if you did your entire education in Sweden or if you studied abroad. So yeah, depending on those things, you may have to upload something. So it's hard to say. But if you applied with your Swedish personal number and you studied your entire education in Sweden, then you do not need to upload that. Okay, still a lot of questions coming in. So I want to remind you again here, scroll some of the questions that are in here. And if you see a question that you also have, please go ahead and like that so that it comes up and we can see it, because we will not be able to get through all of the questions today. I think that's pretty safe to say. We still have almost 80 questions open here. So please go ahead and like questions that you have and we can prioritize those. I have submitted my documents on the university admissions portal, clearly naming the files, but I haven't mentioned, I haven't mentioned my application number on the documents. Would it be an issue? No, not at all. It is not a problem to do that. When you upload something into your account, it is automatically in your account, and where your application number is very clear. So that is not a problem. We can connect them anyway. Gracia says, thank you for this webinar regarding the English requirement. One way to prove my English is by university studies in English. My question is, well, my academic transcript, it says that it is in English. Is that enough, or should I deliver a specific document? Well, Gracia, first of all, check again the rules on universityadmissions.se. You cannot assume that just because you studied in English, you're automatically exempt, or that this would prove your English, because it is a matter of how you can prove it and exactly what is stated on your transcripts. If it is stated on your official transcripts, not in a separate document, that it was in English, then that would usually be enough. Or if the university where you studied only teaches in English, then that would usually be enough. Or if you studied in the EU and you have a certificate that you studied in English, then that could be enough. So there are different rules here for different situations. So please check at university admissions if you need a separate document, if your transcripts are in fact enough. So I can't answer that just based on your question here, because it does depend on your specific degree, where you studied, what the transcript says, etc. So it is very important to check there, but there are many ways you can prove it through your previous university studies. If you studied in English, either in a European country, in an English-speaking country, or at, for example, a British or American school in another country, depending on how the school is accredited and so on. So there's quite a lot of different rules there. So please check them out first and make sure that you can submit the correct documents. All right, I already hold a master's degree. Would it increase my chance to receive a second master's admission? No, it would not increase or decrease your chance. It depends a little bit. If the master's that you have is highly relevant to the master's that you are applying to, meaning that a lot of the subjects are similar and you have good grades on those subjects, then it could be very helpful, of course, but it's not automatically a benefit, and it's also not automatically something negative. We get questions both ways: will it harm me or will it help me? And the answer is neither. In general, then it depends on your specific situation. But if you have studied a lot of relevant courses, it can of course help you, especially if you have good grades in those. Okay. When it says, Andres is asking, when it says transcripts, does that also include the syllabus of each course, or is it sufficient with the course, the credit, and the grade? Andres, when we're talking about transcripts in general, it is sufficient with the name of the course, the credits, and the grade. That is sort of a general transcript. In some cases, you might want to submit the syllabus if it is unclear exactly what subjects have been included. So for example, if let's say you're applying to a master's program and they have quite a specific requirement that says you need to have 45 credits in, I don't know, biology. I'm just making something up now. And in your transcript, maybe it says that you studied natural sciences or sciences, and it doesn't specify that this was biology, for example, then you might want to submit also the syllabus just to clarify that you actually meet this requirement. But in general, it's not required. So don't all go and submit that now. It's not something that you generally need. But if you feel that you might need it in order to prove that you meet the specific entry requirements of the program, you're welcome to submit it. But in general, it's not a required document. All right, next question. Does the university offer Swedish language courses for international students? Yes, there are a few options there. If you are studying a shorter program with us, for example, a one-year master's, then we do give some introductory courses that you can take. And in addition to that, there are plenty of other courses you can take, private options, online options, etc., language groups where you can speak Swedish, but it's not like a full language program or course as such, but there are some shorter courses and activities that you can do in order to improve your Swedish. If you are studying longer, if you're doing a 2-year master's or a bachelor's, you will be able to register as a resident in Lund or in one of our other campus cities. And then you can sign up for the city's own language courses, the Swedish for Immigrant courses. And these are free, and you'll be able to attend them in the evenings so that they don't clash with your studies. And that is a full course, so you can take those courses as well. So it's not offered by the university as such, but by the city. Okay, Melia is asking how many candidates are admitted into the Bachelor's of Biomedicine. I don't remember the exact number now, but I would say they actually open in 2 application rounds. So they admit about half in this application round and half in a later application round. And I believe that their goal is around 50 or so, if I'm not mistaken. But you should be able to find that information otherwise on the department site or from last year's intake. So we can check that for you as well if you write to us later. But I think there will be around 50 or so in that specific course or program. Okay, next one. I have applied and attached all my documents. I'm an EU student for your bachelor program. However, on the screen it says I am not exempt for free applications. Is it because my application plus documents have not been reviewed yet? Yeah, we had a similar question just a moment ago. Most likely, yes. But do check so you don't have a specific message from university admissions if it is the case that they don't accept the proof that you uploaded, or if it's more a generic message. If it is a generic message that just says your application cannot be processed, then most likely it's because they haven't reviewed it yet. But if it is a specific message to you, then you might want to look at that to make sure that you have uploaded the required proof. Okay, Celine, I already applied last year and got into a program. Do I have to upload my documents again? For example, the TOEFL score hasn't changed and I already uploaded it. Celine, no, if you're using the same account, you do not have to upload any of the official documents again. They will still be there and they will still be registered. However, if the programs that you are applying to have any program-specific documents, I would recommend updating those. They might have changed the requirements of those or have a new template or new questions. And either way, something will have happened the last year that you might want to include. So I do recommend resubmitting any program-specific documents. But when it comes to the official documents, if they were correctly submitted last year, you don't have to do that again. Okay. I have completed my bachelor degree in English in Scandinavia. How do I prove my language proficiency? Susanna, again, please check the page on university admissions. It could be that your transcripts are enough if they already state that the studies were in English. Could also be that the school only teaches in English and that this is clear in the International Handbook of Universities, in which case it will be registered automatically. Otherwise, you simply need a certificate from your school. In your case, this is not for everyone, it depends on where you studied, but in your case, a certificate from your university clarifying that the degree was completely in English would also do. But do check your transcript and check the university admissions page about this to verify what options you have. Okay. Okay, here is a good question that I think that many of you who are applying to bachelor studies might have. This is from Susanna, and she's saying that the specific entry requirements mention things like biology 2, chemistry 2, mathematics 4 from the Swedish upper secondary school. I cannot find a translation of this. How do I figure out if I complete these requirements? Susanna, this is very tricky. The thing is that there is no easy way to figure this out, because just as you wrote, it is based on the Swedish system. And whether or not you can meet these requirements depends on the system that you studied in. So this, if it was something we could just translate for everyone, we could easily do that. But unfortunately, we can't, because it is dependent on where you studied. So if you contact us, we can check the specific requirements for your country, and then we can tell you that, for example, in general, in this country, with a high school degree, you would reach this level. And then you can figure out, do I have enough, or do I need to take additional courses in order to meet these requirements? So it is country specific. In some cases, you don't need anything because you meet these requirements already automatically from your high school. And in some cases, you might need to have taken some university courses or specific tests in order to meet these requirements. So unfortunately, there's not one easy answer here. It depends on where you studied, but we would gladly help you with that. If you have questions about that, you can just send us an email and we will check that for you. Okay, my last transcript from my bachelor's degree is being prepared in August or September 2023. Can I register for a master's program in October 2022? And can I? Yes, so this is somebody basically asking if they can apply in their final year of bachelor studies to a master's. Yes, that is possible, as long as you finish your master's before, your bachelor's before the start of the master's. You wrote here that it won't be finished until August or September. So it depends a little bit. You must be able to show that you have completed your studies before you can start the master's. You might not have your diploma yet, and that's usually okay if you get that a little bit later, but you must be able to show that you have in fact completed the bachelor's on time. And if so, then you can apply in the next round, yes. And this was the same question, more or less, so we will change that. Caroline is asking, what is the difference between academic transcripts and academic certificates? Transcripts is the course list, where you see the name of the specific course, the credits, and the grade. Whereas an academic certificate, they usually mean, for example, your degree certificate or other certificates that prove the completion of a specific course or program. So I don't know if that's what you meant, but yeah, hopefully so. Denisa is asking, can we apply in both application rounds, and when is the second round? First of all, when it comes to master's applications, this is the round. You need to apply now if you're applying to a master's. This is the main international round, but it's also the main round for master's programs in general. A few programs do open in the later round, but most of them don't. So please do not wait for that. When it comes to bachelor's, if you're applying to a bachelor programs, the bachelor programs do open in this round, the international round, and also in the later round, also called the Swedish round. But if you are an international student, especially if you're non-EU, we do not recommend that you apply in the later round simply due to time constraints, because the admission results from the later round are only announced in July. And as an international student, you want to show up on campus by mid-August. So that is very tight in order to get here on time. But if you are already living in Sweden, or if you're EU, you can apply to a bachelor program in the second round as well. And if you want to do that, it is open from mid-March to mid-April. Okay, still a lot of questions coming in, so I want to apologize in advance here that we will not be able to get through all of them. Therefore, once again, it is very important that if you see a question here already in the Q&A and you have the same question, please like the question so it will pop up. I will see it and I will be able to help more people. So please do that if you have the same question as anyone else here. Okay, right. Adrian is asking, it seems I'm a bit short on credits in physics for the master program. Is it possible to exchange by email with someone who is conducting the admission for this program, or do you think it's mandatory to have the exact number of credits required? Adrian, it's a little bit hard to say because some programs are more flexible than others, and it also depends on how vital those specific credits are. And it also depends on whether or not you have other experiences that could make up for those credits. For example, if you have been doing some research or you have some work experience, that might be able to make up for that. The best way is simply to apply and to submit anything you have that you think can help your case. You can, of course, contact the program coordinator in advance, but in general, it's very hard for them to give you any confirmation in advance whether or not you will be eligible. In general, they can only process the applications once you have made a complete application. But you can write to the coordinator and just ask to get a general idea whether it's worth it or not to even apply, but they most likely can't give you a firm yes or no. But they can at least indicate if it's a complete waste of time to apply, or if it's still worth to give it a shot, basically. So, and if you want to try that, you can email the program coordinator, and the name of the program coordinator you can find on the program webpage on the Lund University website. All right, another question here. Where can I find the information on how many students got admission in previous years? And this was specifically for international business. Well, there is, you can email us and we can help you with that. It's more of an internal system in Swedish, so it's not really that accessible. And we can give you some indication, but please be aware that this number is not very helpful because it's just a number. It doesn't say anything about, you know, what level was required as such, or what your chances are, or what the grades were that you need to have had in your specific country in order to be considered. And it changes because the competition changes in every round. And it's also the case, you were asking for international business, that specific program is also open in 2 different rounds. So they will not admit they will not fill all the seats in this round. They will also keep half of them to the second round, for example. And in that round, there are other selection criteria. So there's just so much to consider that the number is pretty useless, I would say, in terms of trying to figure out your chances. And I can also say that for the bachelor programs, the main problem for most applicants is that they either haven't finished high school and can't submit the correct documents, or they don't meet the entry requirements. So it's not just a matter of applying and then saying, oh, out of all the applicants, this many were admitted, because most are probably not even eligible. So they don't even get to the part where they are part of the selection. So there's a lot of factors here, so it won't help you much. But what I can say about international business is that I believe they would admit around 100 students or so in total. So, but it is the most popular program in the entire country, all categories, basically. So it is extremely competitive, international business. I think they had well over 3,000 applicants to around 100 seats. But again, a lot of those were also not eligible. So Louise is asking, if I am currently attending another master's degree, should I upload documents from those completed courses or only my bachelor's? Louise, unless the country-specific rules for where you studied say that you need more than a bachelor's to apply to a master's, then the bachelor's is the only requirement, but it's up to you if you feel that your master's courses could help you in the selection, or if you need them in order to meet the specific entry requirements of the program, then you should of course submit them as well. But it's not a general requirement that you do so. So it's a little bit up to you. If you either need them or think they would help you, then yes, submit them, but you don't have to do that. Dell is asking, I would like to inquire about scholarships. How can I apply? What are the requirements and criteria that can increase my chances of getting a scholarship? Well, Del, we talked about this in the presentation. First of all, you can't apply now. You can only apply in February. And in order to be eligible to apply, you need to first have completed your application for studies. So the best chance to increase the probability of getting a scholarship is to make sure that you make a really, really good and strong and complete application for studies, because that's the first step. You can't get a scholarship unless you are selected for studies. And then when it comes to the actual scholarship application in February, you will have a chance to write a motivation letter for the scholarship application as well. And that is really the only tool you have in terms of affecting your chances of getting the scholarship. Other than that, it will be based on the merits from your application for studies. So that's the one you should focus on at this point. Okay. I am interested in the program in human rights studies. The program website says that they want a statement of purpose and 2 letters of recommendation. Does that mean that I do not need to upload my CV? Ronja, yes, you should only submit the official documents stated on universityadmissions.se and the program-specific documents stated on the program webpage on the Lund University website. So whatever the program requests is what you should upload. If they have not requested a CV, then you do not need to upload a CV. So just follow any instruction there from the program. Another question here from Dell. Is there a start of the master's program in January or only in August? I want to inquire about the dates of the Masters in International Marketing and Brand Management and also the Masters in Entrepreneurship and Innovation. Dell, these programs only open in this round. They only start in August, and that goes for 99.9% of all of our programs. There's basically two or three programs that start in January. All other ones only start in August or September. Hello, I have submitted my official transcripts and country-specific documents for the USA. I am still completing my program-specific documents. If I pay the fee now, will those documents I have submitted, for example, my passport, my transcripts, be assessed for any mistakes, or will the system wait until I have uploaded the other documents? Great question. As I mentioned in the presentation, definitely pay the application fee and submit the official documents as early as you possibly can, even if you want to keep working on the program-specific documents, because just as you wrote here, university admissions in Sweden can then start to process those official documents, and they can notify you if anything is wrong. They are not aware of any program-specific documents. They will not process them. They don't care about them. They don't know if they're required. So they will definitely not wait for that. So yes, go ahead with the official documents, pay the fee, let them start processing so you have a chance to find out before the deadline if anything is wrong or missing there. And then take your time with the program specific documents, as long as you submit these, of course, by the 1st of February deadline. Okay, another question from Tariana here. For a 2-year master's program, do we need to show 1 or 2 years of funding for the residence permit? It actually depends on the length of the residence permit. So either you apply for a 1-year permit or you can apply for a 2-year permit. So it's really up to you. If you apply for a 1-year permit, then you only need to show for that year. But then you do also have to apply for an extension later. And of course, then at that point, you would have to show the 2nd year of funding as well. So just be aware of that. And then they will check other criteria as well. And you would have to file another application and so on. So there is definitely a benefit to applying to a 2-year program, 2-year permit, because then you just get that out of the way and you have the permit for the full study period. But I do understand if you don't have that funding, then it's totally fine to go ahead and apply for the 1st year only as a start. Lisa, hey, and thank you for this webinar. I am from Austria and can prove my English proficiency for the master's through my high school graduation document. However, it is written in German and there's no opportunity to get it in English. Can I still apply with it? Well, Lisa, again, check on university admissions and the country-specific rules if we do accept the high school documents in German. I believe we do. And if we do, then it's of course fine to submit them in German. And if you're sure that this will also prove your English, then that is fine as well. So it all depends on what the rules are in terms of the high school documents and in what language we can accept those. We are getting more questions here about the acceptance rate. This is from Dell. What is the acceptance rate for international students? There's no answer to that. We do not differentiate between students, so everybody is competing. All the applicants are competing for the places on the programs. We do not have a specific group saying that, you know, half of the seats are for Swedish students, half of the seats are for this group, half of the seats. It's not like that. Everybody's welcome to apply, and we compare students only based on merits, not nationality. Having said that, there are a few programs that are extremely popular that do have separate selection groups, and they might have different sections of applicants, but there's no general acceptance rate for international students. And it also varies a lot between the programs, how many seats they have, how competitive they are, and also what the selection criteria are. Because again, remember, as I mentioned in the presentation, the master's programs can have several different selection criteria, not just merits, not just your grades, but it could be other things as well. So I cannot give a general acceptance rate. It depends a lot. We also do have a lot of applicants who don't submit all the documents, who are not eligible. So those are not a part of the selection. So these numbers, when it comes to like the number of applicants, doesn't really say much when it comes to the actual selection in the end. So just make as good as an application as you can, and sit tight until April when the results are announced. Okay, Jane is asking, I have applied for a Master in Disaster Risk Management. However, I received an email and a message stating that I have to submit a summary sheet and a statement of purpose. But the website of the program says I should submit a CV, and I'm confused. Please help me on what to submit for this program. Jane, if you check on the program webpage, it is actually stated there exactly what you need to submit. And I believe that for this specific program, it is a summary sheet with a statement of purpose, and they do recommend also submitting a CV, but it's not a requirement. I may be wrong because I do have 140 programs I need to remember. So I could be wrong here, but I checked it quite recently and I believe that is the case. So just follow any instructions. It's written clearly there on the program webpage. And if they have not required a CV there, then you don't need that. But I believe it was recommended, if I don't remember incorrectly. Okay, for a Swedish citizen, what is a work certificate? I need to have those when listing previous qualifications in my summary sheet form. So this is a question about program-specific documents. I do know that some programs that perhaps have work experience as a selection criteria, or they do consider that at least as a part of their selection. They are asking for a CV, they're asking to know what kind of work experience you have, and then they want you to certify that or through a work certificate. And they have not specified exactly what that is. I believe this might be the public health program. The reason why it's not specified is because they can't really specify it, because it can be different things. The point is that you need to prove basically that you have the experience that you say that you have. So this could be a recommendation letter. This could be a certificate from the employer stating just the dates of your employment or the tasks that you have. Could be a work contract, could be different things really. So it's not based on your citizenship or anything like that. But the point is to be able to show that you have the experience that you have listed. This is a good question from Denise. What does it mean to be conditionally accepted? Well, there are several situations where students will, on the day when you get the admission results, it will say conditionally admitted or conditionally accepted. And so what does that mean? That can actually mean several different things. So for example, if you are admitted or conditionally admitted to a master's program, it can mean, for example, that you still have ongoing bachelor studies. And if you do still have ongoing bachelor studies, if you didn't submit your final documents when you applied, you cannot be unconditionally admitted, because it is still a condition that you actually complete your bachelor's. But don't worry about it. It's not anything that affects your application or makes it less likely for you to be admitted or anything. It's just that it means there is a condition for your admission. So you will have to finish your bachelor's in order to start the master's. If that is not the case, or even if that's the case, there may also be other reasons why you are conditionally admitted, and that is students who are required to pay tuition fees. So basically all non-EU students will only be able to be conditionally admitted, and the condition is the payment of the tuition fee. So that is what it means. But you're not any less admitted because you are conditionally admitted. It just means that there is a remaining condition in order for you to enroll. Okay, still have a lot of questions here to go. We'll try to cover a few more. And like I said before, we won't be able to get to all of your questions, but if we're not answering your questions today, don't worry. There will be more opportunities to interact with us. You can always send us an email. I believe my colleague Daniel here is working in the back end. We'll be able to post the link there in the chat before we end, where the contact form is, where you can send us an email. So you can always reach us via email or other ways as well, and we'll be happy to get back to you if we can't answer your question today. We have another question here. Andres, I studied in a private business school, ascribed to a public university. Do the documents need to come from the public university or the business school? That depends, Andres. I can't answer that. It depends, again, if there are any country-specific rules, but also depends on the accreditation. It depends on whether your private school has the right to issue official degree documents or not. In some cases, they are dependent on the university that they belong to submit the official documentation. And if so, we need it from the university. So I can't answer that without knowing more details about your case. Angela is asking, I have submitted all the documents for my program, including a scan of my passport. However, in the application webpage, there's still a statement that my application is incomplete. Yeah, again, Angela, we've had this question several times here today. It could just simply be that they haven't been able to register your nationality yet, especially if you submitted your passport quite recently, here over the Christmas break or just before. So have some patience there for them to register it. If they have not removed this message in, let's say, a week or two, contact us again and we can have a look in your account to see if there's anything else going on. But in most cases, it would simply be that your nationality is not registered yet, and therefore you're still required to pay, because everybody has that message originally that you need to pay or prove the exemption. So if you don't prove the exemption, you're automatically liable to pay. So basically, everybody, you're guilty until proven innocent in this case. So it will be like that until they have registered that you are exempt. Alan is asking about the scholarship. Does it cover everything? Well, we talked about the scholarships, Alan, in the presentation. The Lund University Global Scholarship is a partial scholarship that can cover partial tuition. It does not cover any living costs. When it comes to the Swedish Institute Scholarship, it is a full scholarship, but it's only available to certain nationalities, and they also have quite a few specific eligibility requirements. So you need to check that. And please do apply for other options as well if you are dependent on external funding. Jesper is asking, in my summary sheet form, an average grade is one of the fields I need to fill in. How can I calculate this, since some of my courses have just been pass-fail while others have had a number? Jesper, this is not always easily done. Do the best you can. In some cases, it is specified what your average grade or GPA is once you have your full transcript. In some cases, it's not. In some cases, you can only base it on the courses where you actually have a grade. Do the best you can. If you can't fill it out, leave it. They do have your transcripts as well. This is mainly a tool to make it a little bit easier for the program managers going through your application to quickly see what your grade average is. Lisa, is there any application statistics for the master's programs? I've mentioned this before. Yes, we can help. If you contact us, we can let you know a little bit. Some of the programs also listed on their webpage. But please do not worry too much about these numbers, as they don't really give you all the information you need, and you can't really calculate your chances in that way anyway. So it's best to just wait for the results. But if you do have a question about a specific program and you want to know, for example, how many were admitted last year or something like that, we can help you with that information. But it varies a lot, I should say, between the programs. They're all different sizes and so on. So there's not an answer for everyone. Okay, let's see here. There's a lot of questions left. So let me try to scroll a little bit here and see if there are many questions that are similar, or many of you that have similar questions that we can help with. Again, if you see a question that you also have, please like it and it will jump up in the list here. There are still 51 open questions, so we'll definitely not be able to get to those. We have 7 minutes left of this webinar. So please do like any questions that you also have. Okay, let me see here. Okay, we have a few questions that jumping around here a little bit. Amira is asking, am I supposed to submit my upper secondary studies or high school diploma and grades for master's programs? Amira, no, in general not. If you are applying for master's, we need your bachelor's documents only. However, if you plan on using your high school documents or upper secondary documents for anything, for example, proof of English, then of course you need to submit them, but we don't need them in general. Okay, there are quite a lot of questions that are specific, that are about program specific documents. And again, I want to clarify that you will find all the details you need on the program webpage on the Lund University website. When you go to our website, you can find a whole list of all of our master's programs from A to Z, or you can search by subject. And when you find your master's program, you check on that page, there's a lot of information. There's the overview, there's the requirements section, there's the tuition fees, there's the apply section, etc. And in the apply section, there is a specific part that is called program-specific documents. And here you'll find the exact instruction, what you need to submit, how you need to submit it. There might be a link there as well. Click on that link and you'll get to the department website or the program's own website or webpage, and where they will write even more detail. They might have a specific template for you to use. They might have specific questions for you to answer. And if that is the case, make sure to follow those instructions. And those are, again, program specific. So if you are applying to 1, 2, 3, 4 programs, you have to do this for each and every program. So you cannot just write a statement of purpose or CV and upload that and assume that that's fine for all of your programs. I see that there are a lot of questions still here remaining. Do I need to send it for each program? How do I know what I need to send, etc. So please check that. It's very important, because if the program does require additional documents, it means that those documents are also part of the selection. So it is very important that you follow any instructions that they have there. Okay, let me see if there is anything else here. Here's a question from Dell. If I do not get admission, can I apply again for next year? Absolutely. So if you, for example, are missing a document, or let's say you apply to a program and you misunderstood the entry requirements and you're not in fact eligible, and you do not get admission this year, you're very welcome to adjust that or choose another program and apply again next year. So you will not be punished in any way for applying more than once. It's very common that applicants apply in more than one application round. So you're definitely welcome to do that. Okay, I'm trying to, again, here scroll to see if there are any more general questions that come up several times. I see that many of the other questions are quite specific, so you're very welcome to email us with those. We still have some questions about converting grades, converting courses and credits. Don't worry too much about that. In general, you don't have to do that. In some cases, I know that some of the program-specific documents want you to do that, and then they usually provide some information on how to do that. If they do not, do the best you can. The program-specific documents are not official documents as such, so it's not like you will fail if you do it incorrectly. It is a service to the program staff to help them assess your merits. So don't be too stressed out about it. Of course, try to fill it out to the best of your ability. But in general, you do not need to convert your grades or courses. This is done automatically. There are also some general questions here about the documents and uploading documents, if you need to do it as one file, how you need to name the files and so on. And just try to think there about the perspective of the person reading this. So if it is a document that is connected, then if, for example, if your transcript is 3 pages, of course, try to submit that as one file so that we can easily click through all 3 pages. But otherwise, just follow any uploading instructions on university admissions. And when it comes to the naming of documents, try to name them so that it's clear what they are, especially if you have a lot of documents in your account and you're applying to many different programs. Try to write very clearly, statement of purpose, maybe the program name, Lund University, for example. It makes it a lot easier for the person going through the documents to find them. And also note that in the back end of university admissions, there are different folders. There is one that is for transcripts, and I believe there's one for passport or ID, and then there's one called other or something like that, other documents, which is where you can upload your program-specific documents as well. So there were a few questions about that, so I just wanted to clarify that. All right, it is now 17:59 in Sweden, 1 minute to 6 p.m., which is the end date of this webinar. Again, I'm sorry that we were unable to get to all of your questions, but it doesn't mean you can't get help. Please email us after this webinar if you still have questions, or look at the recording again. This webinar has been recorded and it will be uploaded on our website. So if you missed the beginning, you missed something in the presentation, or you want to hear something again, you will be able to go through that part again and hopefully get your questions answered. I want to thank all of you for attending today, and I want to thank also my colleague Daniel, who has been working in the back end here, answering some of your questions as well. And on behalf of both of us and all our colleagues and the university, we want to wish you the best of luck with your application, and we hope to see you soon in Lund. So that's it for today. Thank you, and goodbye, and again, good luck.